conservative website in the US has leaked recordings of morning briefings from the news network CNN. Now, the tapes feature company president Jeff Zucker, and Project Veritas claims they prove the network's bias against President Trump.
Okay, I just want to reemphasize that, I think we cannot normalize what has happened here in the last week with Trump and his behavior. And I go back to what David Chalian said, that this is a president who knows he's losing, who knows he's in trouble, is sick, maybe is on the after effects of steroids or not, I don't know. But he is acting erratically and desperately, and we need to not normalize that.
Well, the network has responded to the leak, threatening legal action against Project Veritas. And it's defended the language used in the recording, saying diversity of personal opinion is what makes CNN strong. We welcome and embrace it. Well, let's get now some inside scoop from Neil McCabe, communications manager for Project Veritas, and who, if I'm not mistaken, was actually involved in producing these releases. Welcome to the program. First off, I want to ask you, the published recordings would seem to show that CNN is not Trump's greatest fan, which probably for some doesn't come as a huge surprise. So what's new here?
Well, I think what's new here is that you hear the outgoing president of CNN, Jeff Zucker, dictating to his hosts, reporters, editors, and producers what the news will be, not based on whether it is true, not based on whether it's important, but whether or not it fits Jeff Zucker's worldview and personal political agenda. Now, you just read a statement from CNN saying that they welcome a diversity of opinion. I've been on these calls. There's no diversity of opinion. Nobody objects. Nobody challenges. When Cynthia Hudson says that Cuban Americans are supporting Donald Trump because they are attracted to bullies, nobody says, hey, Cynthia, that's a little outrageous. Why don't you dial that back? I mean, I don't think that's what they're welcoming as diversity of opinion. Basically, everybody agrees with everything that Zucker says, and his executives and everybody else on the call. The one time he was challenged during this exercise is when James O'Keefe called Jeff Zucker on Wednesday and asked him, how can you still consider yourself the most trusted name in news? That one challenge, the response came from CNN, we're going to call the police. It's outrageous.
Now, some have questioned whether it was ethical or appropriate to leak these calls. What's your response to that? And I want to ask you, what if the tables were turned and your private discussions with editors were exposed? Would you support it as well then?
Who is objecting? CNN? I mean, they ran secretly recorded tapes of First Lady Melania Trump just weeks ago. They ran the Access Hollywood tapes. They ran tapes secretly recorded of Mitt Romney when he was the 2012 Republican candidate for president. The idea that CNN is suddenly upset about somebody secretly recording a meeting or a conference call and putting it out to the public, that's absolutely absurd. And of course, I have to go back to the whole idea that we're journalists at Project Veritas. We practice undercover journalism, and we work with insiders, and we are journalists. And CNN is they claim to be journalists themselves. Their response is what? To call the police? They said they reported us to law enforcement. It's an absolute joke.
Well, actually picking up on that, CNN did react very quickly on Twitter, no less, said that it's going to get law enforcement involved. My question is, are you ready? And do you think that the law is on your side here?
I don't believe for a minute that the police are to come knocking on our door. Everything that Project Veritas does is legal. We have a very well-trained and very well-paid legal staff, and I'm highly confident that everything we did was within the legal guardrails. And certainly, we have a license given to us by the Bill of Rights called the First Amendment. And the Supreme Court has been very generous when someone's right to express the First Amendment has been questioned, especially among journalists. So no one has called us from law enforcement. That's just something they said. That tweet came from CNN's PR staff, and I think you can call that a PR stunt.
Looking at the wider picture here, obviously, particularly with Trump at the helm, the word fake news has come up a lot. Discussions of bias in media have become really commonplace. I want to ask you, do you think that that's an inevitability that we have to accept now, or do we need to fight against it actively?
Well, you know, the marketplace of ideas is where this stuff is supposed to be sorted out. You know, CNN has a bias, and that bias is revealed on the tapes. It's not necessarily Republican or Democrat, conservative or Republican. It's, do you agree with Jeff Zucker or not? If you don't agree with Jeff Zucker and his worldview and his agenda, you are crazy. And he tells them, we will not normalize you. He talks about going after Senator Lindsey Graham. Why? Because Senator Lindsey Graham does not hew to his narrative. And everybody on the call says, yes, Jeff, fantastic, Jeff. We're with you, Jeff. Nobody challenges him. Nobody objects. Nobody says, hey, I'm on the ground here and state whatever and saying, Jeff, that story isn't right. You never hear people correct Jeff Zucker. He is dictating the news. And when he leaves, we'll see what happens to CNN. Maybe they'll change.
And finally, I just want to ask you, I know you want to keep people in anticipation, but can you tell us, can we expect more tapes, and how far are you going or willing to go to expose what some see as a rigged system?
Well, let me say this. This is the Advent season. And so Project Veritas and our founder, James O'Keefe, have decided to give the people an Advent calendar of CNN releases. So there will be 3 more releases tonight. And then from here through Christmas, we will be releasing 1 or 2 tapes every day, which will be the CNN raw tapes, not the edited down for the sort of those salient clips, but the entire meetings will be posted online and people can see for themselves or hear for themselves. And frankly, we're accused of all sorts of editing tricks. They're going to wish that we had edited their meetings because people will hear them in the raw, and that's hashtag CNN raw.
Well, we'll be waiting to hear on that. Thank you so much for coming on to the program and speaking to us. That was Neil McCabe, Communications Manager for Project Veritas. Good luck.